الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. In the last lesson we looked at belief in the angels and some of the issues connected to belief in the angels. And so continuing from that point, Imam al-Tahawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions after that, وَنُؤْمِنُ بِمَلَكِ الْمَوْتِ الْمُوَكَّلِ بِقَبْضِ أَرْوَاحِ الْعَالَمِينَ, that we believe in the angel of death, which has been entrusted with taking the souls of the alameen, of the worlds. We shall look at the meaning of this word a little later. But then the passage continues because it's related to death and whatever happens after death. And so the whole passage we will look at inshallah ta'ala in the lessons to follow. So in what follows it mentions وَبِعَذَابِ الْقَبْرِ لِمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ أَهْلًا وَسُؤَالِ مُنْكَرٍ وَنَكِيرٍ فِي قَبْرِهِ. And likewise we believe in the punishment of the grave for the one who is deserving of that, and the questioning of Munkar and Nakir in his grave about his Lord, an Rabbihi wa Dinihi wa Nabiyyihi, about his Lord, his Deen and his Prophet. على ما جاءت به الأخبار عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعن الصحابة رضوان الله عليهم, in accordance with whatever has come in the reports from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wa ala alihi wasallam, and likewise from the companions, may Allah's pleasure be upon them. وَالْقَبْرُ رَوْضَةٌ مِّن رِيَاضِ الْجَنَّةِ أَوْ حُفْرَةٌ مِّن حُفَرِ النِّيرَانِ. And so the grave is either a garden from the gardens of paradise, or it is a pit, like a hole, a pit from the pits of hellfire. So we'll start first of all with the commentary of Sheikh Zayd al-Madkhali rahimahullah ta'ala. And so he says that these brief sentences here, they comprise the belief of the believers, which is the Aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And from that is to believe in the angel of death. The angel of death is an angel from the noble angels that Allah has commanded them, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He has commanded them with this particular action, which is to take the souls of al-alameen, al-alamoon. This word al-alamoon, the worlds that we would translate it as, is the plural of alam, alam. And this is everything. The definition of alam is everything that is besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the definition of alam, everything which is besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that which is besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that which lives, that which has a life, they are granted this life, they are granted this time period up until the appointed time comes. And then the angel of death is commanded to take the soul, whether it is from Bani Adam, so Bani Adam we have souls, or whether it is others besides Bani Adam, others have souls as well. But every creation or every creature which Allah has decreed death upon that thing, then it will die at that particular point. As Allah says, كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ in Surah Al-Rahman, كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ, that everything upon it will perish and the face of your Lord shall remain, possessing majesty and honor. So from this what we see from here, the belief in the angel of death is from the Aqeedah of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, and we believe that this angel of death will take the souls by the command of Allah, as He said in the Quran, in the verse, in Surah Al-An'am, Surah 6, verse 61, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَ أَحَدُكُمُ الْمَوْتِ توفته رسلنا وهم لا يفرطون. Until when death comes to one of them, our messengers will take him, meaning take his soul, and they will not be neglectful. So when a person dies from the jinn or from the men, and they reach the grave, so now they've gone past the point of death and they reach the grave, they will be asked about the three principles, the three usul, about the Lord, about the religion, and about the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. And they will be questioned by the angels, Munkar and Nakir, and as for the believers, Allah will give them strength, the ability to answer. Allah will inspire them and give them the strength to answer with the correct answer. Those who were upon genuine, sincere, pure Iman in the life of this world, He will inspire them and make them strong and firm and make them answer with the correct answer. So persons will say, Allah is my Lord, Islam is my religion, and Muhammad is my prophet. And clear signs and clear evidences came to me or came to us, and so I believed in them and I followed him until certainty came to us from our Lord. So this person who answers in this way, it will be said to him, yes, this is what we knew from you. We knew that you are a believer. And then his grave will be expanded to the distance that his eyes can see. And he will be given with the clothing of paradise and will be given from its fruits. And then he will say, when he sees all this and he receives all this, he will say, "O my Lord, establish the hour," meaning he wants it to be established right now, because he wants to be returned to his family and to his belongings. This is how he rejoices when he receives the like of this. And as for the hypocrite, the munafiq, the one who is doubtful, the murtab, and likewise the people of kufr, then they will not know. They will not be inspired with the hujjah. They will not speak with that which is correct and true. And this is for every kafir or munafiq or any doubtful individual. And so as a result, they will be punished by the angels in their graves up until they are raised on the day of judgment. And then on the day of judgment, the punishment will increase on top of the punishment in the grave. And that's why the author, in what we read from the sentences, he said, وَالْقَبْرُ رَوْضَةٌ مِّن رِيَاضِ الْجَنَّةِ أَوْ حُفْرَةٌ مِّن حُفَرِ النِّيرَانِ. That either the grave is a garden from the gardens of paradise, meaning for some people, or it is a pit from the pits of hellfire. So either of these two, for the one who deserves either of these two. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, likewise, from the kuffar, the munafiqeen and the mulhideen, from the atheists, the hypocrites and the disbelievers. But as for the people of Islam who fell into major sins, they're upon Iman, but they fell into major sins, then they will also be subjected to the punishment in the grave, as Allah wills. So all of this is part and parcel of what we believe in, and there are obviously evidences for this as well. But all of this in general is what we believe in. It is the belief of Ahlul Sunnah. It is not permissible to doubt in any of that, nor is it permissible to be ignorant of anything from that. Rather, the Shaykh says it is obligatory to have knowledge of this, because when a person knows that which is to come in front of him or ahead of him, that which is to come ahead of him, and what Allah has prepared for the people of Iman, And likewise, what He has prepared for the people of ijram, meaning of crime, the crime of shirk, the crime of kufr, and the crime of disobedience, then He will ensure that he takes the path of safety which Allah is pleased with in the life of this world, and this will save him from the punishment of the grave and the punishment of the fire. And so after that, from the statements of the scholars regarding the issue of the angels and the grave, as we said, so At-Tahawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, وَنُؤْمِنُ بِمَلِكِ الْمَوْتِ الْمُوَكَّلِ بِقَبْضِ أَرْوَاحِ الْعَالَمِينَ. So Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, and likewise to the end of the passage that we read about the angels, punishment of the grave, and the grave being a garden or being a pit. Shaykh al-Albani says that those who are deserving of the punishment, meaning from the disbelievers and from the sinful Muslims, this is a matter that is maqtu'un bihi. Meaning it is something that is definite, and it is textually stated in the Quran. And likewise, it is also textually stated in the ahadith which are mutawatir, that the sinful Muslims will be punished in the grave. So it is obligatory to believe in all of that. However, we do not start trying to fathom out and ask questions and to figure out the how is this going to happen, because the intellect, the reason of man, stops and halts at knowledge of the kayfiyah. We don't know how this is taking place. We don't understand how in the grave the body is dead, the soul is removed before that, and then the soul is returned. We don't understand this, because even though the Sharia, as the Shaykh explains, comes with things that the intellect can understand, we can understand that, or we can, they're not impossible to the intellect. We can fathom that the soul can be punished, the body can be punished. We can understand all of that, but there are things that bewilder a person's mind. They bewilder you if you start to think about them and start to try to fathom out the reality of these things. And that's why, as Ibn Taymiyyah often he says in his books, that there's nothing in the Sharia that which the Sharia has come with which is impossible in the mind, which is mustahil in the mind. There's nothing that the Sharia has come with. However, there are things which bewilder the mind. Things which your mind simply, if you were to try to think about them and fathom them and understand them and try to work out the reality, your mind will be bewildered, perplexed. You won't be able to do it. So though the mind does not consider these things to be impossible, at the same time it cannot arrive at the realities, the haqa'iq, because these are things which bewilder the mind. So from these things, we believe in the punishment of the grave. We submit to the texts. It is not impossible in our minds to conceive of punishment of the soul and punishment after death. But in terms of fathoming it and understanding it is something that would bewilder our mind. So we make taslim. We believe. It is obligatory to make taslim, to submit and to believe. And this is the general approach that we have towards the affairs of the unseen. Then Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan, he says that Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah says in his Aqeedah al-Wasitiyyah, Al-Aqeedah al-Wasitiyyah, that when we speak of belief in the last day, when we speak of the pillar of Islam, of Iman, which is Al-Iman bi Yawm al-Akhir, this includes everything which happens after death. So the pillar of Iman, when we say that the pillars of Iman are belief in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, the last day, and Al-Qadr, is good and is evil. This fifth pillar, Al-Iman bil-Yawm al-Akhir, this includes everything from the point of death. So for example, the punishment of the grave, the questioning in the grave before that, the bliss of the grave, the resurrection, the people, the al-ba'ath, and then al-hashar, the people being gathered together, and then the presentation of the deeds, and then the reckoning for the deeds, and then the weighing of the deeds after that, and then the scrolls being given to each person, and likewise what comes after that, the bridge, before that there came the Hawd, and likewise the paradise, hellfire. All of these sequence of events, they are part and parcel of belief in the last day. And it is not permissible for anyone to reject anything from these affairs. All of that is included within this pillar of Iman, in believing in the last day. And so therefore there are many things from the affairs of the unseen, the umur of the ghaib, which, as we said before, our minds cannot fathom, they cannot understand, but we depend upon whatever has come in the Quran and what has come in the Sunnah, and we only speak about them with evidence. And so here, before we move on, in the issue of the hereafter, we see that certain groups like the Mu'tazila, they took a certain approach towards these affairs, like for example punishment in the grave, and like for example on the Day of Judgment the weighing of the deeds, and like many other things, the mizan. They couldn't understand and fathom these things. They couldn't understand how can a body that is dead and is turning to ashes and dust, how can it be punished? It doesn't make sense. And likewise, how can deeds be weighed? How can an action be weighed? How can you weigh an action? So the minds couldn't fathom and understand these things, and so therefore they tried to explain away these things. So they said, for example, that the scales, the mizan, is just a symbol. It's just a symbol to refer to the concept of justice. There isn't a thing called the mizan, which is true and real. They said it just means justice. And likewise, they said, took a similar approach to the punishment of the grave. And so they took this approach of ta'wil, this metaphorical explanation and interpretation of some of the affairs that take place in the hereafter. Similar to what they did with the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They couldn't understand, or they tried to understand in terms of the creation. And then when they likened the attributes of Allah to what they see in the creation, they thought this can't be right. Then they began to deny what Allah described Himself with, of al-istiwa, ascending above His throne, and of some of His attributes, like mercy, and like His face, and so on and so forth. So they began to explain away these attributes. So in a similar way, this is what some of these people do with respect to the belief in the hereafter, a belief in the final day. So we submit to the text, we believe that these are realities, they will happen, they are true and real. All of these things are true and real, and we only speak about them in accordance with the evidence. And so the grave, since we're on the topic of the grave then is what we call a partition. It is a barzakh. It is a partition, and the partition, the barzakh is actually a partition between two things, and that's why in the Quran, in Surah Al-Mu'minun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, وَمِن وَرَائِهِمْ بَرْزَخٌ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ, that behind them is a partition up until the day that they are raised. So the grave is in fact a waiting place. The grave is actually a waiting place. It is a partition between the life of the world and the life of the hereafter. That's why Ibn al-Qayyim, he said that there are three places. Surah Al-Mu'minun, Surah 23 verse 100. 23 verse 100. So Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions that the abodes, meaning the places of rest, are of three types. The first one is Dawood-Idrees, the abode of the world. And this is the place where there is action. Action takes place, and people earn, they act and they earn either good, they earn good, or nobility, or what is other than that. Then in the middle there is the barzakh. Darul Barzakh. And this is the waiting place. This is the place where a person is deferred. And the third is Darul Qarar. Darul Qarar. This is paradise or hellfire, meaning the place where there will be eternity. You will remain therein for eternity. And that's why in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He described this. He said, وَإِنَّ الْآخِرَةَ هِيَ دَارُ الْقَرَارِ. That indeed the hereafter, this is the abode of qarar, al-qarar, meaning permanent establishment. Surah Ghafir, Surah 40, verse number 39. So when a person then is placed in his grave, and he is buried in his grave, and then the people walk away from him, and he hears the footsteps of the people walking away from him, as we know in the hadith, then his soul that was initially taken out of his body, that is then returned back to his body. That now comes back to his body. And this now signals the new stage of life in the barzakh. And this is something that we don't understand, we don't fathom, we don't know how it is. We don't know how it is, how the body is reconnected to the soul and there's a new life. We don't understand any of that. But it is a reality. It will be given life and it will be asked about three things. So its intellect will be returned, its senses will be returned, the soul will come back, and it will have the ability to speak and to answer and to think. And so therefore, the three questions are: who is your Lord? And what is your deen? And who is your Prophet? So as the Shaykh says, whoever answers correctly, then he will be successful, and the pit, the grave pit that he is in, it will turn into a garden from the gardens of paradise. And then on the Day of Judgment, he will be from the people of paradise. And if he is someone who hesitates and wavers in the answer, or he doesn't answer, then his grave will turn into a pit from the pits of hellfire. It will constrict against him. It will constrict against him to such a degree that his ribs will lock over each other like the hand crosses over like this. And the grave will be constricted for him. And as for the believer, when the grave is expanded, he will see his door, the door towards paradise, and there will be a fragrance coming from this door. And as for the disbeliever and the munafiq, then his grave will become constricted, and he will see a door towards hellfire, and from it will come the scorching, the heat, the wind, the scorching heat and the scorching wind. So therefore, the correct answer that is given, and by which Allah strengthens a believing servant with in the grave, is that he says, Rabbi Allah, my Lord is Allah, wa dini al-Islam, my deen is Islam, wa nabiyyi Muhammad, and my prophet is Muhammad. And in the Quran, Allah makes reference to this when He says in Surah Ibrahim, Surah 14, verse 27, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. Allah will establish with a firm word those who believe in the life of this world and in the hereafter. Now, how is a person able to answer this question? What is the basis upon which he will be able to answer this question? It is purely on the basis of al-iman. It is just purely iman. A person could be like we say, a balid, someone who is just a more simple-minded Bedouin in the desert, or a simple-minded person in the village. And his iman that he had in the life of this world, his faith, his iman, is something that will allow him and cause him, by Allah's tawfiq, to answer the questions in the right way, because his faith was genuine and sincere, and he acted in accordance with that faith. But he is a simple-minded person from the village, from the desert. So the iman is what gave him the firm word. And then you could have the most cultivated, educated, refined person, in the high society, nobility and everything. He has culture, he's well read, he's read history, he's read philosophy, he's read this, he's done that, and all of this, and yet he will not be able to answer. He will not be able to give the answer because this tawfiq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and because there's no faith, there's no iman. And so this person will say, he will exclaim, I don't know. I just heard the people saying such and such. So either he will say, they said it, so I said it. Meaning he's a munafiq, hypocrite. He didn't say it genuinely. Or he's a disbeliever and he doesn't know what to say. Because, he denied his Lord, he denied Islam, he denied the messenger which came to him. And so therefore, this person, when he's unable to answer, he will be struck with a mace made of iron, and his scream will be heard by every creature except for the men. And if the man was to hear it, then he would become unconscious because of the fear that it would instill into him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَيُضِلُّ اللَّهُ الظَّالِمِينَ وَيَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ. Allah, He misguides the oppressors, and Allah does whatever He wills. That's in the ayah after the previous ayah about the al-qawl al-thabit. So from all of this is what we believe, this is what we affirm our faith in the issue of the angels that we started with, the angel of death when he comes, and then whatever happens after that. So we'll move now to the commentary of Sheikh Salih al-Sheikh on these brief sentences. And so the first of the issue here regarding the angel of death is, first of all, the angel of death in a general sense. This is mentioned in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, قُلْ يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ الَّذِي وُكِّلَ بِكُمْ ثُمَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ تُرْجَعُونَ. This is in Surah As-Sajdah, Surah 30, verse number 11. Allah says, say, the angel of death. So the angel of death is specifically mentioned in the Quran. The angel of death, which has been entrusted over you, will take you, meaning take your soul, and then to your Lord shall you be returned. So here then we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned an angel, and we find that it is obligatory to believe in these affairs, in the unseen, and we believe, unlike the people of some of the other religions believe, we believe that the soul is true and real, and when it is taken out of the body, that soul is a true and real thing. And we believe what will be done with that soul. It will be taken, it will be put in a register, it will be brought back, it will be recombined with the body. We do not believe as what some of the other people believe. For example, those who believe that the soul goes into another person's body. This is like what the Buddhists believe, and some of the Hindus, and some of the Muslims who entered into philosophy were affected by this idea, and they had a belief called at-tanasukh. At-tanasukh, or tanasukhul arwah, which means the migration of souls. The soul leaves one body and it goes to another body. And see, this philosophy is actually, when we trace it back and we look into history, we find that this idea is actually behind the origin of shirk in this ummah, in this nation. And the shirk, it came because there were some people known as the Batiniyya, the Ismaili Batinis. These were people in the 3rd and 4th century. They're known as Ikhwan al-Safa. And they wrote these booklets that they spread amongst the Muslims. And in there was just a mixture of philosophy and Greek philosophy and all of this philosophical stuff. And they tried to merge it with Islam. And this idea of the souls when they leave the body, and connections between the souls, and the effects that they have and connections with the dead and connections to the graves and things like that, because of these philosophical, spiritual, from these angles. This actually is the starting point of the shirk in this ummah. That's where it revolves back around to. And it was at the hand of these people, the Ismaili Batinis, the hypocrites and the disbelievers, who made a face of Islam when they concealed something else. So we believe then the soul is true and real, but this is what we believe about the soul, what will happen about the soul. It does not leave a person and go somewhere else, and go into some other person, or go into some planet or some other thing like this. So the point then here is Imam al-Tahawi is establishing that we believe in the soul, we believe that the soul is true and real, and we believe there are angels appointed and entrusted over the soul. That's in a general sense. Now, as for the specific points, a number of points that we can finish our discussion with. First of all, we see that in this ayah that we mentioned in Surah As-Sajdah, the angel of death is mentioned in the singular, Malakul Maut. And we see in another place in the Quran, the angels are mentioned in plural, more than one. In Surah Al-An'am, Surah 6, verse number 61, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, إِذَا جَاءَ أَحَدُكُمُ الْمَوْتِ تَوَفَّتْهُ رُسُلُنَا وَهُمْ لَا يُفَرِّطُونَ. That when death comes to one of them, تَوَفَّتْهُ رُسُلُنَا. Our messengers, He mentioned messengers in the plural. Our messengers take, meaning take your soul, and they do not fall short, they are not neglectful. So here, who are these messengers? How come in one it says Malakul Maut? How come he says Rusul? And the answer to that is that these other messengers or these other angels, they are the helpers of the angel of death. The angel of death has with him a group or a party of helpers, a host, an army of helpers. He is like a king to them, or like an emir, and so he commands them. And so then, when one is given a command, he will go and take the soul of so and so, or the soul of so and so, or the soul of so and so. Each of them are given a command by the actual angel of death, who is like the emir, or the one who is in charge over them. So for that reason, when Allah says in Surah As-Sajdah, قُلْ يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ, say the angel of death will take you. This is the same meaning as in the other ayah, تَوَفَّتْهُ رُسُلُنَا. Our messengers will take him. Why? Because the command is coming from the angel of death. And really it's the angel of death who is overseeing the whole thing. And those other angels are fulfilling his command. That's the first issue. The second issue is, how is the soul taken? Is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the command at that point in time for the angel, that the point that this individual's time has come, take a soul? Is it like that? Or is it that the angel has with him the scroll in which it is written the point of death, and then the angel, when that comes, he will just take the soul at that point? The answer to this question, is that which we believe in, comes by the fact that the angel is muwakkal, it is appointed. And because it is appointed, it means that it is told what to do. The command comes back from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will give the command, the angel is just muwakkal, meaning just entrusted. So what we believe is that Allah issues the command. Allah orders the angel and issues the command. And when that command is issued, the angel will simply do whatever he does. He will order the other angels to take the soul of so-and-so or the soul of so-and-so. That's the second issue. And the third issue is that when we say that the angels are al-muwakkalun means that they have been entrusted with something. That does not mean that the muwakkil is the one who entrusted them. The angels are the one who have been entrusted with a task. And al-muwakkil is the one who did the entrusting. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It does not mean that Allah is absent. It does not mean that Allah cannot see what is taking place. Unlike what we see in the creation. I will entrust one of you to go and do such and such in another place, in another room, in another building, in another town. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is in charge of His dominion, and He knows and oversees every single thing. He created all of the angels, all of His servants. There's no deficiency in any of His attributes. He sees and hears all things and knows all things. And for that reason, when we worship Him, we are worshipping Him on the basis that we know and understand that this is how He governs His creation. This is how Allah governs His creation. There are angels He has appointed that write the deeds. There are angels He has appointed that will take the souls. There are angels He has appointed that are in charge of the rain, for example, or the mountains, for example, and so on and so forth to every other thing. That this is how Allah governs His creation. So we understand that there are asbab, there are ways and means and causes and effects, and that things take place in this manner. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who makes tasarruf. He's the one who manages all of that in His creation. And so this is how we believe that Allah is not absent. Just because He has entrusted the angels, it does not mean that He is not absent and He is not overseeing things. And then after this, the fifth issue is, At-Tahawi said, Al-Alameen, Al-Alameen, the worlds, that the angel will take, that the angel which is entrusted to take the souls, Al-Arwah, Al-Alameen. This word Al-Alameen, what does that mean? Well, first of all, notice that he said Arwah al-Alameen, the souls of the worlds. That means there are other things besides us that have souls as well. We have souls, but there are other things which have souls as well. And in this, when we speak about the word Alameen, it is used in the Quran in three different ways. There are three different usages of this word, Al-Alameen. The first one is with the definition that we know and understand commonly. It is a name, Al-Alam is a name that refers to everything and anything which is besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the definition. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, as occurs at the end of Surah Ghafir and other ayat. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and in Surah Al-Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Here, Al-Alameen, everything that is besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are individuals, we are from those, the Alameen. Now, this is not the only meaning of this word. This is the general meaning, the general definition, but it's also used in some other senses in the Quran. As an example, when Lut alayhi salam, when he said to his people were an evil, despicable, shameful people, and they used to perform certain actions, and he said, أَتَأْتُونَ الذُّكْرَانَ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ أَتَأْتُونَ الذُّكْرَانَ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. That do you approach men from all of the worlds? So use the word Al-Alameen in this ayah. But clearly, in this ayah, Al-Alameen, it cannot be referring to the angels because angels are not females. Right? So angels are only males. So it wouldn't make sense in this ayah to say, do you approach men from all of the worlds, and for it to be in reference to the angels. Likewise, it does not refer to the jinn, because the jinn are not included in this ayah. He's speaking about his people. He's speaking to his people. And so therefore, the meaning here of Al-Alameen in this ayah is something that's more specific. He means that he means his people. So his people here are referred to as Al-Alameen. Right? So he's saying to them that of all of the people, meaning of here that which are present with the people of Lut, that we see and that we interact with, that are present here with us, from them, from all of this alameen, are you approaching just the men? Right, so this is now another meaning of al-alameen. It is something that's specific. So for example, we could say that all of the people in this town, they are an alam. All the people in this town are an alam. All the people in this country are an alam, are a world. So this is the general meaning of the ayah here, as the Shaykh explains, that in this ayah Lut is talking about the people whom they come to and whom they see. And the third meaning of this word al-alameen is it can refer to the people of a specific age and a specific era, the people of a specific time. So for example, now there is an alam, meaning a people, a world, right now. But 1,000 years ago, that alam was a different alam. That was a different alam, another world, a different set of people. Right? So this is another meaning, and the proof for this in the Quran is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says about Bani Israel. Bani Israel, He says, وَلَقَدْ اخْتَرْنَاهُمْ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. That we chose them, meaning the Bani Israel, upon knowledge, with knowledge, giving them preference over all of the worlds, over the worlds. Which means that Bani Israel, they were favored, and what the word alameen means here is the people of the earth in their time. So of all of the people of the earth were the alameen, all the people of the earth in that time, in the time of Bani Israel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He chose them over all of the people of the earth, from the jinn and from the men and from all the various types of men. And so, because why? In that time, they were the most upright and they were the most aslah, the most rectified of people in that time. So He preferred them over all of the alameen, of the world. Now, obviously, that is specific because we know that the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that they are the most virtuous, they are the most excellent. So the alameen, referring in that verse, cannot refer to everything which is besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's something specific. So it's general, but it's specific. And that's why the word used here, that it is al-am al-makhsus. Al-am al-makhsus. So alameen is a general word, right? Anything which is besides Allah. But here, when it's used in these ayat, it is makhsus. It is specified, for example, only to a specific period of time, like in the case of Bani Israel, or to a specific place, like in the case of Lut alayhi salam, referring to his people. So this is what we call al-am al-makhsus. The word is general, but it can be applied in a specific way to limit its application. And so the point being then, from all of this discussion, is that the word alameen, it is used in the Quran in three different ways. The first is the normal definition, everything which is besides Allah, and it can also have some specific applications as well. And here in our discussion, in the context of our discussion, and the context of what At-Tahaawiyyah said about the angel of death, al-muwakkal biqabdi arwahil alameen, it refers to all of those creatures from the creation who possess a soul. And that is not only mankind, there are other creatures that possess souls as well. So that concludes our discussion of this passage. Inshallah, I will continue with we'll stick with the same passage because there are some other issues to discuss about the punishment of the grave and, what takes place therein. And so we'll continue with that, inshallah ta'ala, in the lesson to follow. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.